Welcome to the latest episode of Into the Pages. Last episode, we finished off the Aeronauts' Windlass, and now we're getting into the Warriorborn book and the Olympian Affair. I think it's kind of funny. Join us as we get into the pages of these interesting books. After reading Warriorborn, I'm not exactly sure why it's not just part of the Olympian Affair.
Seems like it was probably supposed to be, and then he cut it for some reason and then decided that it should be part of this series.
I wonder...
Because basically, because the Olympian Affair begins, and after the prologue, it's Captain Grimm's perspective of, he's on his ship, and he's waiting outside a spire, and there's, a mission going on with Benedict, and he picks him up afterwards, and then the Warriorborn is that mission.
Yeah.
That is from Benedict's perspective. So, and literally picks up where Warriorborn ends. You could literally turn the page, and the next chapter would be Grimm, because it's they're right after each other.
Which I guess it doesn't matter. But what did you think of Warriorborn?
I think overall it's a good story, interesting book. It felt to me kind of like a rough draft done by a really good author. The interactions, the conversations, the kind of general flow didn't feel fully polished to me.
Yeah.
But it's still good. I think it was still interesting enough, but
I kind of had the feeling that maybe Jim finished the Olympian Affair and then was I actually want to tell this story, and then he put this together as fast as he could or something, and then because I think this was published the same year as Olympian Affair.
It was published a month before or something like that. So it was really bang bang.
Yeah, so I don't know. It did kind of feel like.
Yeah.
I don't know, but
who knows?
This book was kind of exciting for me because I'm just a classic fantasy lover, and there was a dragon in this book, so I was like, yes.
Very interesting take on dragons. They have
feathers, they have feathers.
Feathers act just like scales. They're really hard to get through. Etheric weapons have no effect on them. You gotta use, I guess, black powder weapons, traditional type guns and stuff. And speaking of guns in this world, it hasn't really explained why, but iron or steel in general rusts really easily, which kind of explains why. They use a lot of copper, and steel weapons that they do have, they coat in wax, and guns that use black powder, I guess they're built differently than guns that use, because they have the gauntlets that shoot stuff, but they also have long guns that use etheric beams. They never mention those getting iron rod, but they do mention the black powder weapons as getting iron rod. So I don't know what the difference is as far as construction, but kind of a little interesting little tidbit.
I wonder if it's because of the mist.
Well, because it's almost instant.
Oh, is it?
There's just a little offhand comment, I think, from Benedict or something, or maybe from Aspira, but it was an offhand little thought, if you don't put your wax on within an hour or something like that, it starts to rot. And so it just seems there's something that just...
Oh, yeah. That definitely comes off as it happens a lot quicker than... Yeah. It would take a long time for something here to rust like that.
Something about the atmosphere or the air, or maybe that's the way ether interacts with it. It just corrodes really, really quickly.
No wonder they don't like gunpowder stuff.
But yeah, so Warriorborn and Olympian Affair. We're kind of just getting into this. We're kind of getting into the story a little bit. We're getting things set up, and basically how it boils down to is there's two missions going on kind of simultaneously that we're probably going to resolve together in this book, and I think they're definitely going to come together somehow, at some point. But to kind of start us off, we get a lot more information from Warriorborn, but basically something has happened to one of Spire Albion's colony spires. Informants have stopped responding. They're not there's just kind of radio silence. And so Benedict is chosen by Spire Albion, and he gets a team of criminal Warriorborns to go with him and investigate and to try to get some information. And when they get there, everyone is just dead. They're just all gone. Even some structures are just completely gone, and And there's like these weird surface worm creatures that like secrete acid and slowly eat people, as well as a division of, or maybe not a division, but a group of Aurorans that are also there. And then we find out, kind of by them deducing, that the Aurorans have used some sort of weapon. And we get that. We also get that in the back page synopsis of Olympian. Like, the Aurorans have some weapon that can kill spires, entire spires.
And we do find out, we were kind of speculating last episode, like, do they have something that just blows up spires or whatever? But it seems like whatever the heck they have, it just gets rid of all the people somehow.
Yeah, it's really weird. It's like, I guess we'll get more into that in a little bit. But yeah, so that's what Warriorborn is. This is their mission. They're going through the spire trying to find these things, and they kind of struggle. And a few notable things. Dragons are real in this, like we already mentioned. The one thing, they're not like your traditional, super traditional dragon. Like we already mentioned the feathers, but they spit acid.
Yes,
which is kind of cool. But it's like a weird way they spit acid. Like when Benedict was being attacked, it kind of make it seem like it was like, oh, oh. And it was like a big glob of acid. Whereas like other dragons, I think that I've seen spit acid, they're kind of like projectiles, just like
kind of like a hose.
Yeah, kind of like a hose. But this one more seemed
was like he just blobbed an acid ball.
It's just like a blob of acid. So interesting.
Yes.
And we also get some interesting insights, and I think for me, the biggest impact that Warriorborn had on me. I think if you don't read Warriorborn and go right into Olympian Affair, like, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Like, you don't need to read it. But I think the biggest thing, I really liked how it was in Benedict's perspective, because the first book was like rife of like, with like little comments about how Warriorborn are like, for some reason, even though they're so strong and they're so powerful, they're like lesser citizens. They're like lesser people. And this book kind of gives us a peek into why. And basically it's because, like, yes, they're human, but they also have like more animal instincts and characteristics. Like, that makes them more aggressive. It makes them more like sexual.
Yes.
That's kind of like sexual in like a, not like a weirdo rape you kind of way, but like when the Warriorborn females go into season, they say like that's what you say when animals go into season, and like they just want to mate. And like if a man, and like in Benedict, he smells it, and like even Benedict, he's like, oh, he has to stop and like force himself not to fight the other male Warriorborn for mating rights. And he has to like calm himself down. And like the urge is so powerful that the other Warriorborn does do it with her. Like they're all in the same cabin, and they're just,
that was the weirdest part for me. It was like, oh,
they're just like
terrible,
having sex in the background.
Yeah.
And like the smell and the sounds are like really hard for Benedict to like calm himself down and like not allow his instincts to go into that like mating mode. Like you see in like nature when it's mating season, like all animals except for like humans like fight.
Yeah. Like
all the males fight. And that instinct is still super strong in Warriorborns. So I think that's kind of given them a reputation of like, ooh, like you guys are kind of weirdos. And also like really aggressive. One cool thing is like they can extend their claws.
I didn't know about that. That was something I don't think we learned in the.
But the interesting thing is when they extend their claws, it cuts the skin along their fingers. So it's almost like, they can be extended, but it's almost like they're not like really strictly meant to. Like it kind of like seems like their evolution or their combination of human and animal made it so their fingers get cut when they extend their claws, kind of like Wolverine when he does his things, it cuts them open every time. So I was like, that kind of sucks, but at the same time, kind of cool. But
it's like Wolverine's brother, but Wolverine's brother doesn't get cut up. He just makes his fingernails longer, and it's like, okay.
I would say very similar to that. So yeah, that's Warriorborn in like a nutshell. It's that mission there. They get a diplomatic pouch that has things in it, and they're also investigating.
We didn't learn what was in that pouch yet.
Not yet. We do learn an Olympian Affair pretty quickly. Once Grimm gets it, they open it up, and it's just kind of basic reports on like standard spy stuff. I don't know. Like we kind of learn that there's different spires like there. So they have it's kind of like interesting, the political landscape. We get a little broader view of that in the first little bit of Olympian Affair. Because you have the Aurorans and the Albians kind of seem to be the big players. But then you have like their little like a lot of medium or little sized guys. Like you have the Pikes, you have the Olympians, you have the Atlanteans, and they're all kind of like seeing which way, if they're going to join the Aurorans or are they going to join the Albians, or are they going to stay neutral?
I was actually just really surprised to learn that this book takes place 2 years after the Aeronauts win last.
Yeah, it's been 2 years.
And they were ready to go to war at the end of that book, and now it's been 2 years later, and they're just still like politicking about it.
Yeah, so when Roll even like mentions that, he's like, "Humans are stupid. Like, this would be over if they were cats." But yeah, and I think the big thing of note is Atlantia. It leans more towards Auroran side because Atlantia and Albion are like trade rivals. So if Albion were to like die,
be a little bit more it'd be profitable for them.
It'd be profitable for Atlantia. And the report that they had is like, oh, they have like 8 battleships, and that combined with Aurorans, that makes like 11 battleships, which is twice what we have or something like that. So it's like kind of bad news. But that gets us to our mission. The book, it seems like it's going to be divided between 2 different times, 2 different places, but still kind of our overall main group from the first book.
Yeah.
So there's the overarching thing is it seems like Albion wants to still seek a peaceful resolution. Like they don't want to go to war. While at the same time they're kind of preparing for it. So there's like this big political like peace summit is kind of what I thought about on Olympia. And so that's our first mission. Grim and Gwen are sent to escort and help Bayard and Gwen's father in diplomatic relationships. And we'll get into more about that's going on. And then the second mission is, so they still don't know what happened to the Spire. They don't know. They kind of assuming it's all the Auroran weapon. We, as the reader, know that it's an Auroran weapon because we've had the Auroran perspective, and we see them use the weapon, and we'll get into that too. But the second mission is there was a group of cats on this spire that got destroyed that witnessed what happened, and they want that information from the cats, but the cats are like, we'll help you only if we get territory on Spire Albion.
These cats actually really annoyed me because they, like, when they originally met Benedict, they're like, oh yeah, if you get us out of here, we'll help you. But but now we need territory. We need to do this. Now we need to do that. I'm like, isn't it good enough to get your freaking butts off that dang thing? There was all the worm things. There was a dragon and the Aurorans, all of which probably would have killed the cats.
Well, the cats were captured by the Aurorans. They were in
that's right.
The cats were in a sack.
The cats were already captured, for crap's sake.
And they're like dwarf cats. So they're still like 6-7 pounds. But compared to like Roll and other cats, they're like 40, 50 pounds.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out. They seem like they're full grown.
Yeah, they're full grown.
I was just confused with that.
Roll refers to them as halflings.
Because they kept calling them kittens.
Because they look like kittens. Like they thought they were kittens at first. Like at the very beginning, they're like, oh, they're kittens because they're so small. But it turns out that they're full grown for them. So.
I do love the interaction between those cats and Raoul, though. Because it's just,
yes, they like
really
piss
funny.
Roll off so much.
Yeah, they do. He's ready to murder them all.
It's actually funny. I was like, the way I was picturing the interaction, because the chief of those little cats, her name is Saza, has kind of like a little fight with Roll that I thought was really funny because she would just like jump on him and be like, and like run away, and he'd be like trying to chasing her, and like she kept like outpacing him, and she would hide and like jump on him, and I was just like picturing this little kitten playing with this big old fat cat. She
made me think of a kitten for sure.
Yeah.
It's like you see those videos of like little kittens who are like hyper and crazy because they're little cats, and then like with a big adult cat who wants to be lazy and sleep all day, and that cat's just like rah and then runs away. It's so hilarious. That's exactly totally what I thought. But instead of like Raoul just laying there and be like, get out of here, he's like super pissed and is like, I'm gonna kill you.
I know, he's like going after her hardcore, but it was funny because she cut him up pretty bad, but he also got her, and like they kind of formed like a, I don't even know if it would be a respect, but it was kind of like Roll was like, I tested her abilities.
Yeah.
She's kind of adequate. It's kind of funny.
So he's like, he's kind of accepting of her now and the other cats, but he still does not like them at all.
Yeah. So those that's kind of like the kind of seems like what the background of the book is going to be like. So Gwen and Bridget and Benedict are working on their mission to find a home for the cat, so they'll tell them the information. And then you got Gwen and Grim at Spire Olympia trying to watch Bayard's back and help with diplomatic relations. So that's kind of like the general setup, and we'll see kind of what goes on with that. But so I'll kind of get into just kind of what we liked about the first part of the book. kind of introduce. There's a few new characters, a few new places, some cool things that happen. We'll kind of just talk about all those things, but we just kind of want to start off like that's kind of like the background of where we're at. It's been 2 years. We got these 2 missions going on. Everyone's kind of growing a little bit, and now we're just kind of jump into things we liked, things that stuck out to us.
Did you see the map?
I didn't. I always go so fast through maps, so I didn't really look at it. Like I saw it, but I didn't look at it.
Oh, okay. And did you see like them showing? I thought this was kind of cool, but like in the cover of the physical book, it shows. Oh yeah,
I did look at those a little more because it showed like how they, because we talked about that last book, like how do they aim with the gauntlets? It seems like they aim like this.
That's what it seems like they're showing on this.
Yeah.
But I thought that was cool to see, to kind of get confirmation. Also not as cool, but also cool is it shows Grimm's sword and Velasco's sword.
And who is Velasco?
No idea. No. Yes. Part of what is going to be interesting about this story is Aurora wants this war to happen, or I don't remember, where's Velasco sent from? He's Auroran, right?
He's an Auroran warrior born.
Yes, he's an Auroran warrior born.
He's like the best duelist in all the land.
Yes. And for some reason, they really wanted to get him to fight Bayard, who is like Albion's best duelist, even though he's a shorty man.
Yeah. So I think Bayard used to be the best duelist on the land, and then this warrior-born came along, and now he's the best. And so, yeah. And the way they describe Velasco is he's not a very honorable person. Like they kind of paint him as a psychotic serial killer who is able to kill so many people because he does it within legal bounds of a duel. But it seems like
he's not doing it like Bayard because he has to. He does it because he wants to, and he wants to gut people and stuff.
So that's one of the new characters to meet is Velasco. We kind of meet him. And another new character we meet is Lady Hinton. Lady Hinton is Bayard's longtime lover who they want to get married, but they don't get married because of stupid political reasons. That's what it basically comes down to, because Lady Hinton's like ultra wealthy and Bayard's the last member of a dying house, and so they kind of just haven't gotten married. And Lady Hinton like really doesn't like Grimm, mainly because she gave Predator to Bayard and Bayard gave Predator to Grimm, but Bayard was supposed to use Predator to build a merchant empire so he could become ultra rich and marry Lady Hinton, and so she kind of blames Grimm for that not happening. But at the same time, she's kind of like, protect him, make sure he don't die.
Yeah. She makes me think of what's her name from the Dresden Files? Like, there's Michael. Who's Michael married to?
His wife.
Exactly.
I don't remember her name.
But it feels like the same way. Like Charity. She really.
I think it's Charity.
Oh yeah, Charity. Like Charity really just does not like Harry, and she blames him for getting her into a whole bunch of trouble, or he blames Harry for getting Michael into a whole bunch of trouble.
Yeah, like whenever she goes,
but then like she's doing, you better protect him at the same time. So it's like, make up your freaking mind.
Yeah, I can see that if it's in a relationship. But Lady Hinton is also like a really good duelist. Like when we first meet Lady Hinton, she's sparring with Bayard, and I think it makes it clear that Bayard is better, but Lady Hinton is definitely able to semi-hold her own against Bayard. So
it seems like
she has that where she's able to duel and she's good with the saber, but she also seems to be good at subterfuge and stuff like that. Like she has like a spy network. It kind of seems like, and her seems like she's going to play a part in this story where she's going to be kind of working in the background trying to. And she even asks at one point. She asks her servants like, "Is it possible to poison Velasco?"
Yes.
Like
she doesn't want to play nice, which I don't blame her.
And she's like, I want to know where he eats, where he poops, when he does this. Does he call women? Does he do this and this and this? Like it kind of sets it up as like a 007 movie. Like I want to know everything about him. If he sneezes, I want to know about it. It kind of seems like one of those type of scenes.
Yeah. So. And I mean, they already came into this like we have like the meeting with the Spire arc with and Grimm, where he's like, we want to avoid the duel at all costs if possible, and we need to watch Bayard's back because they might pull something. And the first thing Velasco does is he just barges onto their ship. Well, not really. He just comes up there politely and was like, "So when are we gonna do this?" Doesn't even like waste time. Like, where are we gonna do it? When are we gonna do this? I'm gonna do it in 2 days. That's when
they even like trade words where it's like they're both in like insulting each other and like
yeah,
doing things that would normally make both of them be like, How dare you, sir?
Yeah, so, but man, I hate Velasco because I hope this duel happens because I want to see Barrett kick his butt.
Yeah.
Like, because Velasco's just so cocky and he doesn't even like, he looks at Barrett, who's already short for human, and it's just like, I'm going to kill you. And that's just how it is. It's not even going to be, there's no competition or anything.
Yeah, and Bayard's even like, we're not going to do this. And he's like, all right, well, it's your death, so I'll let you choose when and where.
Yeah.
And leaves, so, yeah, he's definitely very arrogant.
He's a pompous butt crack, and I'm just like, get out of here.
And then another character we meet is actually the king of Spire Aurora, Tuscararo. And Arturara, however the crap you want to say his name. And kind of some things I want to mention about him. And we also kind of get a little glimpse into the Auroran Spire. And I think as this world is being kind of fleshed out, like, you know, all the first book was like all Spire Albion and like a few boat rides with Grimm, but it was kind of all in Spire Albion or Albia, whatever the heck.
Yeah, Albia.
And it kind of seemed like, yeah, it kind of seemed like just like a normal city. Like there's trade, there's criminals, there's some things, but it just kind of seemed like a normal place. But then you hear of like Spire Aurora. And it's like super cutthroat. Like Aspiro, we get this through Aspiro's perspective, and he kept thinking in his mind, like, if he lapses in any tiny way, even after his great success in Spire Albion with his raid, some young guy's going to come up and kick him out, and he's going to go instantly back to crazy, insane poverty.
Yeah.
And it's like, kind of seems like that's just how it is. Like, everyone's just ruthless. Everyone's just looking out for number one themselves, and just aggression and going out crazy is kind of what it seems like. That's how the Spire works.
It's almost surprising that Spire Aurora is just as strong as Albion. They're like that. You would think they would be more of like a pirate society where they've got a lot of people who are skilled, but they're not like working together and such.
Yeah, they kind of seem like a military state. Like they're just good fighters. Is kind of what it seems like. It doesn't really mention like trade. It doesn't really mention merchants. It's just kind of like, we're aggressive and we have a big army and we're not afraid to use it. And we also get a look into Cavendish, and we get a little taste in how, because she's the one that's using, it almost seems like she is the weapon. Like when we first see her, she's like in this weird big vat of water hooked up to like this oxygen tube, and she's all like writhing about. And she like almost dies, almost drowns, but then she comes out and she's like, it was a success. I destroyed the colony. And then the king's like, send people to make sure. And that's the group that Benedict ran into. And so it's clear that she
definitely seems
somehow
like
destroyed.
that.
But then when you get like further inside how that works, kind of jumping ahead a little bit, there's another perspective of Aspira where he's on the Mist Shark. So we have Captain Ransom again, and they're flying around, and they see like this confrontation going on between some Delosians, who's like a different spire, and some like weird creatures that they've never
even encountered anything.
Never even encountered before. And I wanted to remind myself what the description was. Basically, they kind of seem like just big lizard people. Like they were described as like really tall, really muscular. They had like big fat tails and crocodilian teeth and mouths.
Yeah, like I couldn't help but picture them as just crocodiles walking on two legs.
That's what I imagined too. And the interesting thing about it is Cavendish saw them and was like wide-eyed and like almost surprised and said, no, not yet. And it's like, what the heck? So now we have like a third aspect, like who are these crocodile people? And because they were on ships that didn't seem to be using crystals, didn't have like sails, but they were like flying around. And Cavendish seemed to recognize who they were. And then Aspira and Ransom, their first instincts are, let's go save the Delosians because they're fighting these weird monsters, and let's capture one of their ships to see how it works. But Cavendish is kind of like, no, this is a perfect field test for what I'm going to do. And I did want to read a direct quote.
Let's hear it.
I should have like written it down in my notes, but I didn't. This is on page 111 of Olympian Affair. I don't know if we have to be specific in citing this. Okay, let's see. All right. So this is kind of happening. So Cavendish says that she wants to have a field test of the weapon, like a tactical test, she calls it. And then she goes below decks. And then like shortly after that, it says, there was a deep, deep sound, a moan that vibrated through the air and shook the spars of the ship. It died away in a long, despairing wheeze. Everyone on the Mist Shark went utterly still, Aspira felt his stomach twist and writhe as it had at the last several colonies. Something disturbed the air, a hideous stench that wafted against his face. The mist beneath the ship stirred and surged upward in whirls as something vast moved through it. A moment later, the moan came again, this time from ahead of them, heading toward the battle and away from the ship. Aspira felt a little burst of hysterical relief that came in hand with a bellyful of molten lead ingots of shame as he regarded the doomed Elosian merchants and its attackers alike. It was over in moments. Nothing remained. Not the enemy ships, not the Delosian merchantmen. Nothing any of them did made the least bit of difference. A minute after that, there was a woman's delighted laughter from below decks.
Freaking Kevin.
And so it almost seems like she summoned some creature, something from like maybe it was like that same dimension that Folly went into, like the creature that confronted her. But like something comes and like there's like a terrible stench, and it's a stench that actually Benedict and the other warrior born like gagged them and like disgusted them. Like they couldn't tell what the heck it was.
They blamed it on those worm things.
Yeah, I kind of seemed like they were kind of thinking it was like the worm, but I'm almost thinking it was this thing.
I think it is.
But yeah, then like the mist was like roiling, like there's some weird creature going out there, and then but it doesn't explain what happened. Like they just hear like a moan, and then all of a sudden everything's gone. And so at the same time they didn't like.
Was it? I can't remember. Was it like just the people were gone, or like even the ships?
Everything, the ships people, everything were just gone.
Yeah, they got something crazy up their sleeve.
Just gone. So it makes me think that she's somehow some otherworldly, alternate dimension. Something is.
I'm definitely curious to learn more about or find out what the heck that is, because it got rid of everything with these ships, but like on the spire, there's still like the spires was still there.
But like it was like almost like sporadic because the skyport was like completely gone. Like the guns, the ships, the docks, everything was just gone. It was just spire stone. But then when they got into the town, there were still houses and buildings and stuff.
So I wonder if like maybe it lost its momentum or whatever as it went in.
I don't know.
Because I guess the spire stone is supposed to be like indestructible. It's like it seems like it's the strongest material in this book.
Yeah. It's really weird.
We need to know.
Really strange. But yeah, so we have that going on. And then kind of some larger things I also wanted to talk about is like the world in general. So I like how it's starting to like kind of flesh out. Because like we already mentioned, like in the first book, it was kind of all Spire Albion, but now we're kind of getting an idea of the world at large. And apparently there's like colonies. There's people who don't even live on spires. There's spires that are abandoned. Like no one lives on the spires at all. And so I'm still like reinforcing it. Seems like something crazy happened, and these people are like rebounding from some sort of apocalypse.
Yeah, no kidding.
Right? Like, are you getting that impression?
Yes, 100%. It's almost like it almost makes me think of like Fallout, but kind of like the opposite. Like they built spires up instead of like building vaults into the ground. But then like you see the surface world and like, what the frick happened here?
I don't even know. It's really weird.
Yeah. What I'm surprised at is to learn that there are colonies and people who live on the surface. I mean, it kind of makes sense that like the spires have woodcutters on the surface, but
and it also makes it seem like that's where their prisons are.
Yeah.
Because when the three warrior born who went with Benedict were in the prison camps that were like the woodcutting prison camps. And the reason they even went on the mission is because they were told that they would be pardoned. And like, when you're on the surface, and it kind of describes this later on, like everyone is just constantly on guard because you never know when you're going to be attacked by some surface creature. Which, interestingly enough, all the dangerous ones, at least that they seem to talk about, hunt humans by using echolocation.
Yes, because I didn't think about this, because I was just imagining like the mist that these guys talk about all the time was just like in the air, but it seems like it's really thick in the bottom too.
Yeah, it almost seems like it starts at the bottom and goes super high in the air.
Yeah, that's what it seems like.
It's kind of interesting.
So yeah, it doesn't surprise me that they use echolocation. They probably can't see worth crap if there's thick mist.
And so everyone on the surface has to be really quiet so that you can listen for those clicking.
Yeah. And
they have they say every 50 yards there is a shelter that you can run into and hide in if you hear the clicking. Yeah. And that's actually how so we read to chapter 15 for today's episode. And chapter 15 ends with they hear the clicking and everyone just drops what they're doing and just bolts for one of these shelters. And like everyone's like super terrified. I'm like crap. That seems stressful.
It makes me think of you see like those nature documentaries and there's like a rabbit or something who's just like sitting there munching on something, and then it hears a bird, and then it's like running like crazy, and it's trying to get out of there.
Yeah,
It's
that's
really
exactly what it's like. And I think Benedict even says the surface is like he says the warrior-born are like surface creatures. So it makes me almost wonder like warrior-born are like maybe they're like natives and they're originally lived on the surface, and then like maybe like humans as we see them aren't natives to this place.
Yeah,
That's why
maybe
the spires were built.
Maybe they're not. This is not Earth.
Yeah, I don't know, because the warrior-born, like they have the heightened senses, they are super strong, and they're kind of really animalistic, and they almost seem like perfectly suited to living on the surface.
But actually, this brings up one of my thinking is, I am super excited for this book because the first book I was just like, what the frick is up with the surface? I want to know more about it. And we've already learned that they've got like prisons and colonies and even like woodcutters on the surface, which they don't think they mentioned at all in the first book. So it's already nice. But I'm super excited that we've got one of the main characters going down there, because I'm like, tell us all about the dang surface.
Yeah, no, seriously.
So I'm excited about that because I think it'll do more of what you were just mentioned. We're going to learn more about the world and such.
Yes, which I'm really excited to hear more about.
Yeah, seriously. We've been tortured enough.
Also, just kind of quick little side note. I don't think we'd mentioned this. Kind of, since it has been 2 years, I have like a "Where are they now?" section in my notes. But
yeah.
But Gwen, she is Grimm's new second mate.
Yeah.
So we don't know what happened. It hasn't mentioned anything about his previous. It hasn't even like mentioned his name.
Yeah, it didn't mention Creedy yet. I kind of just assumed he went back to the fleet, like Bayard was saying to Grimm.
Yeah, I guess that's what we're left to assume. Like, even when it's like, for the last 2 years, Gwen has been his XO. It wasn't even like since Creedy left. It was just like, she's just there now. And what I think is actually really good for her. I think she's going to get a lot of character growth. She kind of still seems a little...
I already feel like she's gotten...
Yeah.
She's not as annoying. Because it seems like Grimm is definitely the kind of person who is not going to tolerate her rich crap.
Yeah. I think he has the firm hand, the good world experience, and he's just a good down to earth. I think he's going to be a really good mentor for Gwen. And he doesn't hesitate to teach hard lessons to Gwen. Like there's one point where he issues an order through her to a journeyman, and the journeyman doesn't obey it, but Gwen just does it. And then Grimm goes down. He's like, nope, it was my order for him. Like, you shouldn't have done it. And then he dismisses everyone, and then he has a fist fight with journeyman. And Gwen's kind of like, what the frick?
Yeah.
And he's like, you gotta remember, like, and then he'd use that as a lesson. He's like, remember to, like, in private, like, don't humiliate them in front of the crew, but always make sure that they're like doing what they're supposed to be doing.
That was something that made me really like Grimm even more. Is like his humiliation is not a good punishment. It just makes things worse. And he knew how to handle journeyman.
Yeah, I think that's good for Gwen, because I think Gwen definitely would go more towards the humiliation. Like, she did it several times in the other book. Like, that's the reason why Bridget had to have her duel, is because Gwen got involved and humiliated a guy, and felt like he had to defend his honor. And so
maybe that's exactly why they did this part, or Jim did this, because it's like, oh, Gwen can help.
Because even like mentioned, it was like she was like really thoughtful while she was like watching it. It said. So we still haven't had it from her perspective. So far, the book has been Bridget's perspective, Grimm's perspective, and Aspira's perspective.
We've gotten some from the new girl's face.
Oh yeah, and Lady Hinton.
I
forgot about that. Yeah,
but yeah, we haven't gotten anything from Raoul yet in the first 15 chapters either. I'm kind of curious how Gwen's family reacted to her like joining Grimm's ship.
I don't know, because her dad's there. Like, her dad.
Yeah, like we haven't seen any interaction with them yet.
We've seen very little. There was like a little part of Lady Hinton talking to him.
Okay. But I mean, like, have we seen Gwen and him talk?
No.
Okay.
And they're on different ships. Like, he's on, they rechristened Itasca and named her Belligerent and kind of fixed her up. And so they're on that ship. Like, Bayard's in command of that ship, and that's where Gwen's dad is. And she's on Predator, so they're kind of like together. But
so I'm wondering if they're disapproving of that at all, especially because just the way that Bridges thought of Grimm in the other book near the end or somewhere, like, I was not saved by a disgraced fleet member, you know.
Or you mean Gwen?
Yeah, Gwen. Didn't I say Gwen?
You said Bridget.
I meant Gwen.
Speaking of Bridget and Benedict are courting.
Yes.
They're kind of like Roll's like super bold and straightforward and like embarrass the crap out of both. It was really funny.
I love it so much. And actually, in the last chapter with Benedict and Bridget, which was on the surface one, it's like he brought up a good point. He's like, "Aren't you used to the directness of these cats?" And she's still like super embarrassed when Raoul was like, "I know you want to mate with her, but
she's like, this is a test. If you are able to protect her on the surface, then I will allow you to mate with her." And Bridget's like,
it's so dang hilarious.
And then Benedict's even like, and then she's like,
There was one part that, oh my gosh, it had me laughing so good because I just imagined what a real cat would do. But like Bridget is now like a full member of the guard. She's a sergeant in the guard.
She's a sergeant, yeah.
And she's got a special uniform made with like extra padding on her shoulder for Raoul to dig his claws into and sit on her. And what I thought was so hilarious is when Benedict got back and surprised her. And she was like walking down somewhere or something, and then and he's like, "Oh,
he was
here
like,
I am."
Whoa!
Oh yeah,
something
that's
like
what
that,
I think. That's
something.
What it was. And then she like whips around. and
Raoul's like,
ah! It was freaking hilarious. Like, can you imagine?
Especially because he's all pissed about it. He's like,
I know. And I just couldn't help imagine like a real cat would just be like, because if you watch enough videos of like, or you're around cats enough, and when they get scared, they just. I just can't imagine. I also think it would be really funny. Like, Raoul is huge.
Yeah, he's like 50 pounds.
I know.
How the frick? And she's just like carrying him on his shoulder.
I don't think she would whip around. I think he would.
My shoulder would get so tired carrying 50 pounds like perched right here. Like you freaking cat.
That would
like,
hurt. Especially like she's bigger for a woman, I guess, but like that's still a very small area for a 50-pound cat to just sit.
Seriously. But
that was my favorite part, though. I just couldn't imagine like, poor Raoul.
Yes, and I like how the little cats insult Raoul too, because they always call him fat. He's all like, "All right, stay here." Because I remember they're like I think one of the little cats joined them on the surface, but he like snuck on, and no one even saw him, even Raoul. And they're like, "How did you get here?" And he was like, "Oh, I'm surprised you didn't see you, especially even the fat one." And Raoul's like, like, "How dare you?"
He totally does come off as like some rich person, or he makes me think of like an English person who's like royalty or whatever.
Like, stay here. Like,
yeah, exactly.
How dare you?
So like he just not expecting to be insulted. He's like, "What?"
It's like totally flabbergasted.
But actually, that's another one of my favorite parts. What I thought was super funny is when they get to the surface, and it was Fenley, who's like the second in command of Saz's tribe
group, but there's only like 12 of them left.
Yeah. And so he like brushed against Bridget's ankle while running down and whatever, and she freaks out and jumps and like is ready to shoot her gauntlet and even throws Raoul off her shoulder. And she screams.
I know, because it happens like, it's like perfect timing, because it happens right after Benedict's like telling her all this crap off the surface, and then right after all of that, like Bentley brushes against her and she's like screams and like everyone like looks at her. It's like and Roll gets flung, and then Finley calls Roll fat. And Roll's just like,
and he can't do anything about it because they're all too dang fast for him. Raoul's probably pretty fast, but he's still a big cat.
Yeah.
He can't.
I'm still just picturing that part with Salsa, because like it even scares, like she jumps on his back and like claws him. So I'm just like picturing the little cat go like, like running away. And he's like,
oh, these cats are great.
Oh yeah, another thing that I thought was interesting. So Ferris and Folly are both part of the story still. Folly still kind of occasionally goes on Predator, and she like has like she like talks to Predator.
Yeah, there was one scene where she has tea with it.
Like, she's like, Predator was stressed, so I had some tea with it. It's like crazy.
Yeah.
But then also, it turns out there's another etherealist. I think they said she was an Atlantean etherealist, or I don't remember if it was an Aurora. I think it was an Atlantean. I don't think it was an Auroran etherealist. But that had invented like etheric clothing that could influence the thoughts and emotions of people around him. And Ferris joins up with Lady Hinton to protect Lady Hinton from that.
I thought it was funny how she was like, I can't be influenced by my emotions. Like, let's see.
Like,
She's interesting too. What was her name? She's like a warrior-born pike captain.
Oh yeah, Ravenna.
Ravenna, yeah. She's like a dragon hunter, and she's hunted so many dragons. She's got a coat made out of their feathers.
Yeah, and apparently her and Grimm had a thing. And they have sex in the armory,
and he's married. But like, I totally think she's also in seasons. It's the warrior-born time of year.
I think Grimm is in season 2.
Well, he's a man.
He's
always in
it
season.
reminded me of like reading Harry Dresden, because he was like, she had curves in all the right places, and then she bent over, and Grimm was like, oh my. And then she like presses against him, they start making out, and then he locks the door.
Yeah.
And he's all like, the world won't burn down in an hour.
Yeah. She's super aggressive too. Like when he walks in there, she just goes right up to him and just lays one on him.
I know. And speaking of pikers, they're also interesting because they don't have like spires of their own. They kind of live in like mountain caves, and like they have like kind of hand-me-down crystals, and so they don't really use a lot of like gauntlets. They have like primarily like gunpowder weapons.
Yeah.
And they also fight differently. And another thing I thought was super interesting, that made me wonder why more people don't do it, but I guess it's because of how prevalent iron rod is. But shrouds won't stop anything except for energy weapons.
Yeah, which I thought was insane.
And so they're like, they're saying even though like their ships have like cannons, like traditional like black powder cannons, like if they get in a good shot, their shot won't do anything. But at the same time, like they're really easy to beat. And so like their main strategy is like boarding parties. Like they like every pike ship has like a few hundred warriors that just board, and they have like their ship opens up in the front, and so they like swoop down on top and open up in front and just jump off and jump onto your ship. And
yeah,
so it's kind of like this different way of fighting.
I hope we get to see them in action doing something. That'd be fun.
See, look at my notes. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I really wanted to. Cause like with all books, like these first group of chapters are just kind of like setting the scene, introducing us to characters, and then we're kind of really
this one does feel Olympian Affair feels slower than the Aeronauts Windlass.
Yeah,
but
I can definitely see there's definitely multiple points where I think there's going to be opportunity to be like, whoa.
I had a few things. I was actually surprised to see Folly. She seems to have like lost her madness a little bit, if that makes any sense, or maybe she's just grown up
more
a little.
Confident.
Because there was many moments where like she talks directly to people now, and she doesn't have to be like,
it seems like
tell this person that.
It seems like she was with people that she knew though, or people that she was already comfortable with.
Yeah, because
like when she met Lady Hinton, she didn't talk directly to her.
Maybe
like she looked at her, but it was obvious. But Lady Hinton's perspective, and it was like even though Folly was looking at her, she was talking to Master Ferris.
Okay, so maybe that's what it is. But it's kind of weird because I thought that was her madness, so she like had to talk to her crystals or whatever.
Yeah. And there's even one point where I think Ferris and Folly were talking to the Spire Arc, and the Spire Arc like addressed her directly, and she was like, "Oh my, I didn't realize I'd have to talk to anybody while I was here." So it seems like she saw some of her isms, but it definitely seems like she's progressed in her training, and she's actually not an apprentice anymore. Ferris says she's now a journeyman, so she's definitely progressed a lot. She's become a lot more confident, but she still has her little weirdness where she has to talk to crystals, or I guess to people she's really comfortable with. But
oh yes, I remember what it was about Gwen that made me think she was growing up a little more. It's like when Grimm and her are going to mate Ravenna.
Yeah.
And there's like the pike men who are like talking and swearing and grabbing. And Grimm noted like, oh yeah, 2 years ago she would have like been all over that. No. But now she just kind of wasn't paying attention to it, or just kind of let it go. So I was kind of thinking that it just seems like Gwen is kind of over, probably not all the way. She probably has a lot to learn still and a lot more to grow. But she's much less annoying to me now.
Yeah.
So I'm glad for that, because So the chapter is like, Gwen, will you just jump off the dang spires?
Yeah.
Oh, man. But this one's got me super excited. I'm super excited to see what's going to happen with Bayard and this duel that may or may not happen.
So
But
I
I
am
am
more about the surface too.
Yeah, but I am so dang excited to learn out what the heck is going on the surface.
Yeah.
Especially after like reading Warrior Born and kind of seeing those criminals talk about it a little bit. It just made me more curious. And we're going to see Benedict list off a bunch of like creatures that are down there. And it's like, this is just the ones we've seen. We don't even know which ones we haven't seen.
Yeah.
So I cannot wait. Well, we've decided to split this book up into 4 parts. So we covered the first 15 chapters and the prologue in this. And we'll read through chapter 30 for next week's episode. So until then, we'll catch y'all later.
See ya. It's over.